Good afternoon and a warm welcome to everyone here joining this fireside chat. Mistakes to avoid, our experience from 30 plus years of migrations. My name is Priya. I'm the anchor and evangelist for global partner marketing strategy at SNP Group. I'm based in Singapore, and this is my 8th unforgettable, better than ever transformation world with SNP Group. It is my immense honor and pleasure to share the stage with my prolific colleagues from across the globe. And it's been great curating this with you all. And maybe we get into a quick get to know mode before we ask questions. So, your quick introduction from all of you, and then.
Well, I'm Jörg Weiss. I'm CEO Services at SNP, and looking forward for a great fireside chat with my colleagues here.
My name is Ezekiel. I am from Latin America. I am the head of go-to-market for Latin America.
My name is Ben McDermott. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland, and I'm the head of global program management for SNP.
I'm Benjamin Deaver here from the US. I am our director of professional services.
Awesome. So let's just get started a bit. So what is the motivation? The motivation here is Keanu, of course, where we have 30 years of experience with SAP landscape transformations and systems with over 15,000 projects globally, 100% success across industries and worldwide. When we were curating this, we decided to flip the talk a bit, pause a bit. We've been talking about transformation success today and yesterday. How about we focus on the mistakes to avoid? Right? We focus on the success, but we also focus on what we could have done better, reflecting on the journey as we go along. So maybe I will invite Jörg to set up a bit of a scene here on the common pitfalls, right? And what could be that first critical step so that we see a continuity in the projects.
Of course, Priya. Well, actually, as you might know, every journey starts with the first step, and you can set it up for success or for failure. Yeah? There are multiple things you can screw it up, but I think, to me, the most important topic is at the very first beginning, having a clear, well-aligned strategy. Yeah? And the strategy consists of 3 key elements for me. Yeah? One is the technology, the other is the methodology, and the third part is about the people. I think that's obvious, but turning it around and starting with the foundation, as you were also talking about our Keanu platform and the experience we do have. Yeah, it is not only about Keanu, about having the solid foundation for it. It's also about understanding the underlying systems, understanding the data, which is all reflected in the technology layer. Yeah, and then it comes to the methodology, where it's about how do we execute a project, a transformation, migration project, whatever, from the very first beginning, even before we might know that we are about to start a data migration project, yeah, which will then be supported by, for example, our agility index in the Keanu Foundation. Yeah, so this brings then together technology, methodology, which is fully embedded in our Keanu platform, but also in the knowledge of our people. This is then the third key point in order to have a successful preparation for a data migration project or even a program, which is the people. So why is people important? Yeah? You are going to say culture eats strategy. Yeah? This is an old phrase, but I think everybody is aware of it. But it is absolutely crucial because myself, and also I was discussing this with my colleagues, yeah, you might. So I've never seen an IT project failing due to technology issues. Yeah, there are always workarounds. Yeah, but I've seen many projects being stopped, being significantly delayed, leading to cost overruns due to issues caused by the people, by the organization. Yeah. So one issue there, for example, could be don't involve the business. Yeah, in the IT, it's just an IT project. Yeah, we're not involving the business. At the end, we're expecting them to test, but they don't know why they should test and what the outcome should be. Yeah, but it's also important to have the right partners on board. Yeah, not only for the data migration, that's why you are hopefully here, but also for the system integrators, other partners you might need, such as SmartShift, for example. Yeah, moving the custom code to your new system landscape. That's important, plus the business, yeah? And then the strategy needs to be fully embedded and aligned with the overall strategy. So with the business strategy of the company, but also with the implementation strategy, yeah? And it needs to be communicated and educated. Yeah? Everybody needs to know, why are we doing this? What is expected from me, involving all of the people. And then I would say you're set up for success. Yeah? This is the first step. There are still multiple topics to mess it up, but this is what we'll then discuss in the next minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I think that just sets the scene to us, and maybe I will invite Eze from our LATAM team to comment on how important is analysis, because I hear that, right? Self-analysis, assessment, before you take the leap of faith.
Priya, believe me that these days that we have, customers count with technology, what we see is that we can address an assessment, a very deep assessment on the initial phase of the relationship with the customer, yes, directly or with our partner. What happens here is that in the past, as a CIO, they have a technical depth with the business. It's a huge technical depth, and they know that in this sequence they will get that done, and they are going to do their job. What we bring to the table is that you don't need to do it sequentially. Do a scan, do you use the agility index that we have in the Kiano Foundation. With that information, you can assess exactly for example, you can do the company code selections, seeing how the target system is going to be, how are you going to merge instances, and everything before moving one consultant. This is a scan that is done overnight. So this is also a good point for avoiding risks during the projects and having a business buy-in. Yes, and a small comment is that Kiano Foundation gives IT the opportunity of doing this constantly. Yes, so they will prepare for a project. Even if the partner or we are not there, they will prepare for the project. That is a good point for starting a great project.
Great. That's a very good insight from on ground there, right? Bringing a solution also when we do a mistake. So I hear a common denominator here, data, right? I can't help but trouble Ben a bit, who's come all the way from North America. How important is data quality, and what could have been done better all along, you think, from your experience?
No, I appreciate it. When it comes down to it, everything that we're doing revolves around the data. At the end of the day, that's really what we're moving. It's the piece that drives every piece of what we're doing and the outcomes that are being presented. As we work with organizations, everything starts from upfront having a reasonable plan and understanding around the quality, not just of the data that we're working with, but then also as we're working through the different activities inside of a project. This goes back to what Ezekiel was talking about, where the Kiano Foundation, the analysis aspects, allows us to understand really what it is that we're working with and help people actually understand where quality aspects can be impacted. Probably the top examples I see in active work that we're doing is helping the customer have the conversations internally, or at least have the understanding. Like, if we want to have a highly agile ERP implementation that allows for different activities in the future, then why is it that we're looking at bringing 10 plus years of legacy historic data? Let's find other ways of holding on to that for legal or regulatory reasons. Or being able to look at data quality from the concept of harmonization, aggressive programs to make sure that we're extracting all the value we can from those processes. Because the harmonization isn't going to be the part that causes huge problems. It's when there are exceptions. It's the exception-based processing that ends up causing issues inside of these large programs. And so when I think about data quality, I think about those predominant instances.
Awesome. Okay. Now I'm just again thinking about the kind of common denominator here, and Ben, to you, what about the scope? I think we're missing it somewhere on the way.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've heard a lot about data quality being extremely important, but you really need to think about the scope of what it is that you're trying to achieve in the project in order to make sure that you plan everything properly and that you start the project the way it's supposed to go. So, for example, we're extremely flexible with our Keanu platform. There are many, many things that we can achieve in a project. We can have many pre-projects all combined into a single one. We can have wave-based go-lives. We can have big bang approach. We can go live in the middle of a fiscal year. We can go live at the beginning of a fiscal year. There is so much flexibility behind that. But if you start your journey without having considered your scoping to begin with, you're likely going to run into trouble. If you're lucky, it might just be a little bit around the timing of the project. But in the worst case, you might end up having to massively extend the project, rethink things. So very important mistake to avoid is sit down and figure out the exact scope of what you want to achieve before embarking on the project.
I heard about people and culture, right? So do you think it makes sense to involve business early in the stages and the story? I mean,
Absolutely. It's a very common pitfall that we see where the business hasn't been properly engaged. So an SAP project, of course, SAP is a piece of software. It is effectively an IT project. But to assume it's just an IT project would be a massive error. The number of fantastic presentations we've seen over the past day or two, and every one of them that I've paid attention to and been able to watch, has had a common thread in it, which is try or make sure that you don't forget to consult the business, address them early on. We heard from Jörg at the beginning that testing, of course, is critical, and the business absolutely needs to be involved in the testing. But it's not just the testing. They need to be there from the beginning. They need to be figuring out the scope. If you go ahead and implement a project and you're successful at the end of it, everybody's happy. And then the business starts using it and they say, hold on a second, this is not making our lives any easier. This hasn't achieved what we wanted to achieve. Then that is not going to be a successful project. So definitely start early, involve the business, and make sure that they are heavily involved in every aspect of the project.
awesome. I think there's just one of the things, Ben, maybe the quality gates, I think, are missing here, probably as one of the topics. Are we saving at the wrong end?
So quality gates, and I'm going to go back to something that Ben McDermott was talking about, which is testing. I cannot stress enough how much being able to have a comprehensive test strategy that evolves over the course of a program will keep you in alignment with your end goals. It'll help detect issues early on. There are a lot of programs that I've been a part of where testing wasn't an immediate priority on day one, and you end up suffering for it at the end. When you think about testing, everything having to do with the end users, hugely important, absolutely. But think about it from a more holistic approach. There are multiple different avenues that we can head down. Inside of the Keanu platform, again, there's a huge verification capability, not only going to support end user testing, we'll talk about that just in a second, but think about it from some of the more basic activities that are huge time draws that can suddenly be automated. So just being able to do basic activities, middle of a huge migration, we're about to be able to get into S4 conversion steps. Being able to have a discrete test case that has been running and very quickly confirms 100% of the data that's actually needed to enter that gateway has been achieved, so that you do not put yourself in a situation where you're in a huge downtime event where a precursor hasn't been successfully achieved. Think of little things like that that are very easy to implement during the duration of a project to be able to offset risk. This gets into the gateway conversation. It's not just how do we enter into the next test cycle, it's going to be how do we enter the next step of the test cycle? How do we make sure that we proceed with the next major event in our migration approach in order to make sure that if we can identify an error that took place in the first 5 minutes, but you don't find out about the impact until hour 40, then we're having a pretty bad day. If you catch it in the first 5 minutes, anything's recoverable at that point. And so walking into it with that type of mentality is really where the value proposition comes from. Then think about the fact that this is an ERP system. We're not talking about 10, 20, 30 use cases. We're talking about thousands. Test plans don't have a couple of pages. Test plans will have tens of thousands of test cases associated with them. That is a huge time draw, especially when you're talking about the risk of business downtime. So again, where can we automate these activities? Where can we do as much of this automatically behind the scenes, measure the time window associated with it in minutes, not days, be able to provide a level of confidence to the end user community before the system is ever open to them that this has been fully tested, that the values are correct, the transactions work properly, and then hand it over for the next test cycle, or luckily the go live at the end, and be able to operate with a really high sense of certainty that the business is going to come back and say, hey, this works great, we're good to go. But being able to build in the automation, being able to build in that program end to end, being able to build in the tens of thousands of test cases that are needed, being able to build in the individual quality gateways within every step. And the final thing I'll hit on with testing is that you'll test something in your first test cycle. You'll test it in the second one. It passed both. It's got to be in all of them. Just because you test once up front and it was effective doesn't mean that you get to pull it out. Testing is something that has to happen every step of the way. There's really no way to be able to negotiate that down without introducing risk. So make sure that you're performing those activities each step of the way through.
Awesome insights. Really appreciate that. So maybe we're looking at also the time. You want to just sum it up a bit in a few minutes, and then I have a surprise for everyone here.
Some surprise always sounds great for you.
Yes.
What I would love to add to the testing is that we will have the dress rehearsal, so the go live simulation at the end, which is really, really crucial. Yeah, just to make this to the point, this is kind of the exact simulation about what we are going to do at the go live. Yeah, so this means we are not allowed having any changes before. Yeah, reality is always a bit different. I think that's clear that we are talking always about kind of the stretch goal. What do we want to achieve? Yeah, if something happens, well, we are always aiming on finding a way. But in the ideal world, it is exactly reflecting what we are doing with the exact system performance we are going to have in the environment, but also at the go live. Yeah, that's what I would like to add, because this is always where sometimes there are, I would say, different expectations. Yeah, let me phrase it this way. So then, well, summing it up, put high efforts at the beginning, yeah, in order to align, have a clear picture. Ben, you were also reiterating that you were talking about the analysis, which is really important. Yeah, it's really about understanding where we are, where do we want to be, yeah, and then defining the steps, how can we achieve this, yeah, and then education, communication, yeah, that we can bring in everybody who needs to participate, to be informed, to contribute, whatever, that we can then execute it, yeah? Don't have kind of hidden projects plans or whatever, yeah? Being really clear that it's for everybody, it's about collaboration, the people topic, yeah? Execute the test phases properly, aim on testing, not the student syndrome, yeah? I know it back when I was at the university, yeah, okay, tests are in, I don't know, 3 months, I don't have to do anything today, yeah, I have time, yeah, and then we postpone, or often the business is postponing it to the user acceptance test. Yeah, this is where we need to prove. But of course, if you haven't tested before and retested what you were saying, Ben, then we will figure it out when it's almost too late. Yeah, and then go for, I would call it, smooth, boring go live, as you have already done it in the dress rehearsal. So this would be my recommendation.
Perfect, perfect. So now for the little bit of surprise. What is that most favorite mistake? And you killed it in 10 seconds if you can. Go for it.
Try to make sure that you have at least one test cycle that's taking place in the same fiscal year as your go live. If they're all different, you're setting yourself up for a bad day.
Good one, good
This
one.
would work for sure, yeah. I would add, don't involve the business, yeah? Or at the latest point, yeah? Then you can also make sure you mess it up successfully. Yeah.
Do you want to comment on that, Ben? Anything?
Well, I mean, my major mistake to avoid would be to treat this as just a simple IT project. It's an easy underestimation, the complexity of the project, but yet people do it over and over again.
This is one question nobody asked, right? What is your favorite mistake? Go for it.
Assuming that we know everything, but there is something very particular, is we don't know what we don't know. So we need to assess. Yes, assess, and we do it with foundation.
Assess and involve everybody who can contribute, right?
Correct.
Yeah?
Yes,
Absolutely.
correct.
That's
The early engagement. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I hope the audience enjoyed the session as much as we enjoyed curating it. It was so much fun, and have a nice rest of the day. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks for having us here.